Welcome to Sometimes Love Isn't Enough, the Parenting Through Challenges podcast. I am your host, Angie Grandt, Generational Healing Specialist. And in this episode, I want to talk to the parents of teens. If you're not a parent of a teen yet, your child is younger, you soon will be. If you're in the throes of raising a teenager, I want to shed some light on what you are experiencing, why, and perhaps some powerful things that you can do to get back in connection with your child. I first want to say that what you're experiencing as a parent of a teenager is unique to your experience. It's unique to the energetic dynamic between you and your kiddo. It's your parenting journey is so highly influenced by your experience as a teenager. It's highly influenced by your expectations about how teenagers should act. It's influenced by the child that you once knew who is changing and growing, and it may feel to you like disconnecting. So I'm going to go through some key things that, in general, teenagers go through. And right, there's so many different lenses to look at this through. You could talk to your pediatrician and they will give you a medical overview of hormonally what's happening with your teenager. Or you could talk with a therapist or a counselor about, the mental health pieces of it. But I want to give perhaps a unique and different perspective about what your kiddo is going through at this stage. Because so in our last episode, we were talking about the experience of a toddler. And I am in no way comparing a teenager to a toddler, and yet I'm comparing a teenager to a toddler. And I mean that with all the love that I can give, but there are two huge developmental stages for kids. When our kids become toddlers, there's this huge exponential growth that happens in the way that their brain is mapping itself. And we see that as our kids exerting their autonomy, trying to separate themselves from us. And that comes out in them, saying no and being perhaps defiant or stubborn or strong-willed, I will often hear parents say. Our kids go through a similar stage with, of course, some nuanced differences, again, during the teenage years. It is during the teenage years, and the starting age for this can be so different for our kids, but it's during these teenage years that our kids go through another stage of autonomy and separation. When we think back historically to, what was expected of teenagers hundreds of years ago, it was at this age that kids were expected to, you know, be a big help on the farm or in the tribe, to have a much bigger role in the family life, which required a much higher level of maturity, a much higher level of autonomy and less independence. And that wiring is still part of who we are, of who our kids are. And so while they're moving out of the innocence and immaturity of being kids, they're moving into this autonomy and independence of being teenagers and soon to become adults. But it's not like they get a instruction manual about what they're going through. And so our kids are trying to hold on to the identity of who they once were, and yet feeling this hormonal and energetic and biological pull to be something bigger and broader and more independent. And so what that looks like to us is our kids shutting us out, our kids being less responsive to us. Perhaps our kids are more argumentative or defiant, or words are coming out of their mouths that to us who maybe raised these humans who maybe for many, many years of their life were kind and compassionate can suddenly become what feels to be cruel. And it feels very personal. And here's a reframe that I want you to consider is although our kids' words feel so personal, and they are our kids, right? We are their parents. What if those words are just their very best attempt at trying to figure out what their role is in life and where their autonomy lies? Because when we can look at their words through curiosity and through this more bigger picture lens, it takes us out of the space of taking things so personally and wanting to react back to our kids. Because developmentally, what our kids are going through in these teenage years, it can be incredibly painful. It can cause us as parents to even more so question our role, question how we raised our kids, question what influence we had over our kids as they were growing up. But if we can take a step outside of that and really reflect on all of the good things that we did teach our kids, all of the good ways that we did show up for our kids, and to see their defiance, their pushing back, their shutting us out at this age as a natural part of their development, it helps us shift the way that we show up for our kids. I would also add that there are, in addition to the hormones and biology and all of that, there's some key energetic things that are happening to our teenagers, but around the age of 13 and moving on up to the age of 17. So when we think about the chakras, our kids during this stage, this teenage stage, can have a shrinking or a closure of their crown chakra. Well, what does that mean for our kids? It means perhaps that they're a bit more closed off to you, to your ideas, and energetically are focusing more on internally what do they need. Oftentimes we'll see when our kids are younger that despite our best efforts, our kids are so driven to please us, to be well behaved, to stay out of trouble for the most part, right? With of course some wiggle room in there because our kids are human. But we'll often see this friction that we feel when our kids become teenagers is perhaps a reflection of what is happening with them energetically, that they're in some ways shutting out the outside world, shutting out outside influence, outside ideas. But what's also happening at that same time as that crown is shrinking or even closing is that the heart chakra and even the solar plexus might be a bit enlarged or even out of balance. And so when I think about emotionally how others can have an influence on our kiddos during this stage, that when our kids are going through the teenage years, yeah, outside ideas might be, especially from parents, might be a bit harder to get in. Our kids are asserting their independence because energetically that's what's actually happening inside of them, while at the same time they can be more emotionally reactive because energetically they're more open and even a bit unbalanced and uncertain about how to handle emotions. So think about that as you're looking at your kiddo who maybe is reactive, they're emotional, you can't seem to understand why they're having such seemingly unbalanced reactions to what's happening in life, where something small happens and they just fly off the handle or they totally shut you out. What if nothing has gone wrong? And instead, they're trying to navigate powerful changes that are happening in their neurology in their brain, powerful changes that are happening energetically in their chakras, and powerful changes that are happening hormonally as hormones are rushing through their bodies in ways that they've never experienced before. right? This all sounds so daunting. And when we think about it in this way and put ourselves in our kids' shoes, how un unsettling or scary this might be for kids. Their reactions don't necessarily look like they're scared. Oftentimes they look like, get the heck away from me, leave me alone. Why are you talking to me? Why did you look at me, right? But these behaviors, much like all behaviors, may very well be fueled by some big shifts that are going on in our kids. It is at this stage also that our kids are really, because of this, trying to be more independent, can also push our kids into this space of really trying to figure out who they are separate from you again. As we noted last week in the episode about toddlers, we were talking about how often what happens in that toddler stage is our toddlers are trying to figure out how they are separate from you and what that looks like. And the most powerful way that many of them do that is in saying no. And they realize that they have this ability to separate themselves from you just with one simple word. When our kids are teenagers, they oftentimes are much more articulate and have many more words to add into that. And yet, as part of what they're trying to separate from family, separate from connection, they're also trying to figure out what it is, what that next group is that they belong into. And it is in this stage that teenagers can really get wrapped up in trying to figure out, understanding their bodies and how they fit into the world and trying to understand gender and sexuality and maturity and what they're here to contribute to society. There's often so much pressure on our teenagers to be productive members of society and for our kids to try to figure that out. And at the same time, they're pushing you away can be challenging. It's often in this stage, in this teenage stage, that we will also see the mistaken motivation of power. That when our kids are feeling this internal pressure to separate themselves and feeling this great deep need to feel empowered, a need that was there all along, but perhaps in these teenage years, it has a bit of a fire under it. So this is an overview of the things that our kids are going through these teenage years. So now I want to shift gears about what do we get to do about this? Because when we're able to show up for our kids in a different way because they're in a different phase, it has the power to minimize behaviors. And I will never claim that shifting our parenting will reduce behaviors because we, as parents, are humans, our kids are humans. There's so much outside of us that's influencing it, but we truly, truly have the power to influence behaviors and how we are showing up for our kids. I have spent decades of my career in learning, implementing, using, and training on behavior management strategies. And I now realize in working so intimately with parents over the past several years that the most powerful behavior management strategy that we have in our tool belt isn't about changing our kids. It's about recognizing their needs at every stage along the way and shifting the way that we show up for them. It isn't about sacrificing ourselves for our kids. It isn't about martyring ourselves for our kids, but it's about seeing that we brought our kids into this world for whatever reason that is. But I truly believe that we all have an important purpose on this planet. Some of our purposes is to create friction in someone's life to help get them unstuck. And it might feel uncomfortable or gross or even in some ways tragic at times. But if our purpose was to get them unstuck, get them out of a rut, then that's our purpose. Some of us have other purposes to help align people or create more peace in the world. And I believe this to be true for our kids as much as I believe it to be true for you. So when we can really see our kids and acknowledge where they're at and provide them the support instead of providing more friction for them, because that I don't just believe, I see it when I look back in my own parenting relationship, and still today, I'm not perfect by any means. I still today see that I create friction in my relationships because I'm still holding on to old expectations about how my kids are supposed to behave, or how I'm supposed to behave, or what society expects of me as a coach, as a parent, as a grandma, as a clinician. Those expectations cause me to take action, to say words, to make decisions for myself and for how I interact with others in ways that end up sometimes being misaligned with me. And I notice that, and then I shift and I keep doing the work on me to keep showing up the way that I want to for you, for my clients, for myself, for my family, and for the community that I live in. And so when I say doing the work on you to shift you for your kids, it's about that. It's about being happier in yourself, creating less friction in yourself, creating less friction in your relationships by being more aligned with you. And so my first, I guess, practical step for you in parenting a teenager is keeping in mind that our kids' solar plexus and heart chakras are out of balance. One of the most powerful things that we can do is to ensure that our own heart, our own emotions, our own sense of self as in balance as it can be. Because energetically, at this stage, our kids are more open. They're picking up on what we're putting out there. They're picking up on what their peers are putting out there and their teachers and their communities. But oftentimes our kids spend most of their time with us. Even if they're in their room behind closed doors, they're still at home with us, oftentimes. And so doing exercises or taking action to make sure that we are in coherence with our own heart is a powerful way to not only create peace in our own bodies, but also to create coherence with our kids, to create connection with our kids. And so my first exercise for you, my first practice for you is an exercise that I'm learning in a certification that I'm in, but it's called heart coherence. And in heart coherence, it's a simple meditative practice that I encourage you to start doing daily. Do it daily as a daily practice, but also to start doing it in those moments when you're feeling frustrated with your teenager. So here's what you do. As part of your daily practice, find a place that is comfortable, that is distraction free, where perhaps you're laying flat on the floor or sitting in a comfortable chair with your feet flat on the ground so that you feel grounded. And while in this space, I want you to just start noticing your breath. Notice your breath flow in and out. Just notice it. Don't judge it. Don't try to change it. Just notice it flowing in and out. And now that you've noticed your breath, I want you to imagine breathing in through the space in your chest where your heart is. Breathing in through your heart in the center of your chest, and breathing out through your heart in the center of your chest. Just continue breathing in and breathing out at a slow, steady pace through this space in your heart. And as you do so, I encourage you to think about something that you're grateful for. Or think about or imagine, visualize yourself sending that love, that breath from your heart to the heart of your kiddo. As you breathe in through your heart space and breathe out through your heart space, you can even visualize a beam of love traveling from your heart to their heart, breathing in through your heart space and breathing out through your heart space. This is a practice that whether you're thinking about gratitude as you breathe in through your heart space or sending love through your heart space, it's a practice that when you build it into your daily routine, it becomes easier and easier for you. Just here, while I was talking you through this strategy, I so quickly went into heart coherence. When I first started it, it was hard. I found it hard to really get my body and mind into that space of calm and peace and love and relaxation. But really, with just a little bit of practice of just breathing in through the heart and out through the heart, I'm able to quickly put myself in the same state of mind. And so, like I said, building this in as a daily practice then puts you in a space where the next time your teenager is arguing with you or ignoring you or says something hurtful to you or pushes you away or does any of those things that your teenager does for you, I encourage you in the moment while they're saying what they're saying and your mind might want to react. I encourage you to just pause and just breathe in through your heart and breathe out through your heart while they're right there. Just breathe, because this practice not only has the power to get you in a space where you're more relaxed, you're taking their words less personally, you're less reactive, but it also has the power energetically to shift the space that your kiddo is in. As they're in this phase of life where energetically their heart and solar plexus are more open, the state of your emotions has a huge influence on them. And what normally happens is the cycle. The reactive teenager triggers the reactive parent, which triggers the reactive teenager. And then you're just stuck in this space of you feeling unheard and unappreciated and frustrated, and our kids feeling unheard and unappreciated and devalued and feeling like they don't belong. Not because you want them to feel like that, but because you just don't know what else to do. So I was going to share a couple of strategies with you, but if I'm being super honest, I want to just leave you with this strategy, breathing in through your heart and breathing out through your heart and sending that love or focusing on gratitude, whichever feels right to you. And just notice what shifts for you in your relationship. I would love, love, love to hear your thoughts about this practice. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this episode. And if you are feeling stuck and are ready to step into being the parent that you really want to be, I'd love to connect with you. I offer a free connection clarity call where I walk you through a powerful exercise to really show you where you are getting stuck. And I offer you some solutions for that. Some of them are some resources I share. I also offer one-on-one sessions. The most comprehensive that I offer is a coaching package where we tap together one-on-one on your parenting struggles. I use key mindset tools, meditative practices to help you become the parent that you know you are. Your conditioning is getting in the way, is stopping you from really showing up to be the person that you want to be. So I'd love to chat with you when you're ready. And until next time, be well.